Thank you, Pinterest. Okay, so yeah, thank you very much, Ellie. It's been a long couple months physically. So anybody who doesn't know what's been up with me, I've been dealing with a lot of migraines this past month. I've had some really bad ones, and I've been dealing with a lot of pain problems because the weather's been changing as we head into autumn, and that always messes with me. So I appreciate you guys being patient with my in and out sort of situation. And I also had all that traveling toward the end of September, so hopefully I'll be able to get things more consistent. Uh, so this week I'm talking about authorship. Before I tell you what that means, does anybody want to take a stab at what I'm talking about when I say I want to discuss authorship this week? Curly already said it's a boat abducted by aliens, and that's not entirely wrong. And shipping authors, I mean, I guess. Yeah, that's a good answer, Carly. That's part of it. I'm gonna give the hamsters and everybody's brains a minute to spool up. Creationism, yeah. Yep, that's part of it. Those are all good answers, and those are all definitely pieces that are part of this puzzle. Copyright, yes, that's part of it. Absolutely, that's a good one. Plagiarism, I hope not. I very much hope it's not part of being an author. Yep, that's definitely part of it, anagram. That's part of it, Carly. Good job. You guys are all sort of seasonless. Yeah, okay. So you guys are all sort of getting pieces of it. Authorship is in all of those things. It is the state of being an author. It is what it means to be an author. And that includes all of your writing. It includes the marketing and other horrible stuff. It can include sending cease and desist letters if you're mean. It includes all the creativity. It includes copyrights. It includes all of that stuff because it is the state of being an author. Being an author is definitely a state of being. And when I say author, I usually am referring to somebody whose book has been published before. So it's not just uh, it isn't somebody who is hoping to get published. It means you have something out, whether it's a short story, whether it's a novel. You're not an author yet, but you want to be. So it doesn't mean so authorship is a journey. It's a whole thing. And I know that's wonderfully vague, but authorship starts when you decide that you would like to have your book published. Yeah, don't be like JK is definitely part of it. Um, but it's the decision to be an author begins, that whole journey starts when you say, I want to do this professionally. I want to publish my book. I want to share it with people. Professor of things, yes. I approve of this entirely. Uh, but that's when it begins. It doesn't necessarily begin after your book comes out, because at this point, I'm an author and my book doesn't come out until January, but I'm doing all these things. So it begins when you start that trip. Now, that journey can start with you deciding to self-publish. It can decide with you saying you want to find an agent or a publisher. There's no one singular way to get into it, but it is that state where you leave just being somebody who wants to write stories and enjoys writing stories and enters into the space of being somebody who wants to do this professionally, which it is and isn't a big thing, because one thing that a lot of people don't know about me is I have I was a couple credits shy of getting a degree in business management. So I understand a lot of the businessy end of things in ways that folks who haven't had that experience and don't have the training don't. That gives me a leg up in a lot of the markety end of things. That just does. And doing that means that when I decided I wanted to be an author, I started treating it as if this is my business, as if this is my side hustle. This is actually a job for me. It might be a part-time job. It might be, one of those nights and weekends sort of things. But it is a job. It's no longer something that I do as a hobby. Which does change a little bit. It changes the mental math a little, because at that point, once I decided I really want to do this in order to make money. Exactly, Carly. You're 100% on. It is a vocation. And that means that you need to treat it as if it is a job to some extent. And I don't necessarily mean just the creation end of things. Like, yes, putting your butt in your chair and putting your fingers on the keys and doing that is absolutely part of it. But it's not just that. It is also committing to the stuff that happens after you publish a book. And that is, it's big and it's kind of scary. And I don't blame anybody who's like, oh no, now what? That's all right. But saying, I want to do this and committing to it means that you are taking on that vocation, which also comes with things like starting to study it. So if I wanted to go to if I wanted to be a hairdresser, I would go to school for it. I would talk to people in the industry. I would learn how to do the thing. I'd practice. I would probably get my hair done a bunch and think about it, because hairdressing is extremely creative if you really get into it. And that is that is definitely starting to head down the authorship mindset. I'm not saying you are or aren't in it. I'm talking about the decision to be like, okay, I am going to publish this for public consumption somewhere that isn't Wattpad for fun. That's when the change takes place. If you're just writing fan fiction on AO3 or writing a story on Wattpad or what have you, and you're not charging for it and you're just putting it out there into the world because you want to write and share that story with people for fun, and just because you enjoy doing it, that is completely okay and valid. But it doesn't require that kind of change in gears over to recognizing that this is going to be a business, which means I have to invest in it. It doesn't necessarily mean, yeah, that's fine. You're welcome to, you're welcome to charge however much you charge or don't charge. I'm not necessarily talking about the financial end of things. If you're going to be putting all the work into your book and giving it away for free because it's something you believe in, you're still an author because you still are approaching it from a business mindset, though at that point you're not thinking about money, you're thinking about how many eyes can I get on this? How do I get people to read what I have? Which is still a business mindset, but it's not about cash. So it's kind of it's not capitalism per se, but it's still a business mindset because you still have to market to get it in front of eyes to get people to know it exists. Which is totally okay. And rightly, that is completely fine. If you just want people to read your stories, that's great. Yeah, exactly, Carly. How do I act when somebody comes for an interview? Absolutely. Or even how do I act when a small paper comes for an interview? For example, on Monday, I am talking to a class of college students. I was invited by a writing professor to do a brief talk about publishing and to do a Q&A session with her writing students. Because I'm connected with one of her students, and the teacher thought that I might be fun to have in and might be useful because I actually know what things are like on a publishing end of thing. And yeah, Nid, that is correct. Though capital, sweat equity counts as capital, which is something a lot of people don't think about. Sweat equity is hard work. It isn't necessarily something that I purchase. Like me editing for my company is mostly sweat equity. I'm doing work, but at the same time, it doesn't cost me money to do that work outside the electricity bill and the internet. But sweat equity might also be, mowing the lawn or something. Right, food, the but it doesn't have any direct costs associated with that specific thing. There are costs of existing, but I mean, I'd have internet and power anyway because I play video games and I like to see, and I tend to be a creature of the night, so it's hard to be a creature of the night without light. But things like that, I'm not. Those are definitely costs associated with doing business. But when you're talking about sweat equity, it's mostly when I'm editing, it's mostly my time that I'm putting into these things. And yeah, it's just things that can't be deducted from your taxes. That's a great way of putting it, Anagram. Yeah, exactly, Ellie. That's a great way of putting it. So the change in mindset between an amateur or a hobbyist and a professional. And while technically the definition of a professional is somebody who exchanges money for their time and service, I think we can be a little broader in the sense of people who want to have a professional grade product even if they're giving it away. Like something you could charge money for, but you're choosing not to. That is completely fair. What you choose to do with your product is up to you. So, the reason I've been on all of this lately is because I talk to a lot of authors, and I talk to a lot of authors who don't actually understand what it means to be an author. I deal with that a lot. No, it's not naive. If you want to write something for the sake of writing it just because you want to write it, that is not naive whatsoever. If that's what you want to do and that's where your passion is, I will never tell you not to create art just for the sake of creating art. I am not that much of a capitalist. If you want to create art just for you, or no, it's okay. You don't need to apologize. If you want to, if there are people, I mean, I know people who write wonderful, beautiful fan fiction, and that's all they want to do is they want to write that fan fiction and share it with the world, but they don't really want to publish it. They're not trying to monetize it. They just want to write. That's wonderful. I will never tell anybody that's naive or wrong. I'm just talking about what changes when you decide you want to do this as a living. So because there are changes. There have to be changes between I like doing this and it's fun and I want to do this as a vocation. It's sort of like somebody who makes bread for fun for their family or for friends or what have you. Or I have a friend who makes soap. She made soap for herself and her family and friends and stuff for a long time and really enjoyed it. And then when she decided to turn it into a business, she had to think about her soap making differently because she had to allocate time to fill orders and to make it. It was no longer just a thing she did as a hobby. She actually had to block out her time and look at this as a business because that's what it was. People were paying her money for the soap. So she had to have it be a business. Monster. Sorry. Oh, monster. No. Cat. This is unprofessional. Why? There's a cat climbing into my arms, so. And yeah, Monster's a professional. She's a professional pain in the ass. And correct, Heather. The difference is like there are deadlines. You have to market differently if you need to make money from it. You have to approach it in a way that you're putting more emphasis on this is a job to some extent, which a lot of people they aren't ready for and think they want but don't really want because it requires a lot out of a person. It requires you to treat this as a job. And for some people, treating their writing as a job sucks all the joy out of it, which is fine. I'm not that it's okay if that isn't what you want to do. If you come up against the fact that this is work and don't want to do it anymore, that's all right and it isn't failure. It's okay if you up against that. And I would rather be the person to tell you, "Hey, these are things you have to be aware of if you want to publish and be an author for money. If this is if this is a career you're trying to go down, if this is a path you're trying to take, I would rather be the person at the head of the trail saying, you should be this tall to ride, and if you're not, you may end up regretting that decision. uh, and that isn't to say you need to stop writing, because don't. Write your heart out and enjoy your storytelling. Storytelling is not something that one only needs to do for money. So when you're starting to look at it as, okay, I want this as a revenue stream and I want to make money on it, you have to click that kind of over in your head and like, okay, this is my job now. And what that entails doesn't have to be gigantic. It doesn't have to be terrifying. It doesn't need to be hideously complicated either. Like for me, I dedicate a few hours a week, right now more than that because I've been ramping up to release my first book in January and doing all of the things that I need to do in order to make that happen. But it's not taking over my life. I still write for fun. I still play video games. I still do all the things I did before. I just set aside time to be author me as opposed to just human me. Because authorship does mean making that choice that this is going to be a professional thing for me. I want to do this for money. That means I need to start treating it as a business, and I need to look at this through the eyes of a person who's going into this as a business person. And that is a reality for people who want to publish a book. Now, the reason I'm hammering so hard on this is because this week alone, I have encountered a large number of people who enjoy writing, but when they come up against the realities of the publishing industry, end up feeling as though they've been lied to somehow. And it also, it creates this kind of cognitive dissonance because they want to write and they want that to be what they do, but at the same time, they feel as if they were not told, no, this is really what it's like. And they wrote a book and are trying to figure out how to publish it and aren't actually taking the right steps or didn't realize that it is business. And they feel as though something magical has been taken away from them. And it's heartbreaking to watch, and I feel awful about it, but I'd rather be the signpost saying, be careful, you might just want to do this for fun and for love, and that's okay. Okay. School definitely doesn't cover all of this. And correct, Anagram, it's the difference between taking something that's a hobby and making it your job. But people oftentimes don't think making money from your art is going to be like adopting a job. People don't like to think in terms of art and job. They don't like putting those together. Right, it can absolutely feel like pollution. And I understand that. I know plenty of people, like myself included. I've been playing violin for a very long time, and while I was a professional for a while, I played in bars and stuff, and I enjoyed it until I couldn't do it anymore. It's a different mindset between me just pulling out my violin to jam with people or playing at an SCA event just for the fun of doing it. I still write just for the fun of writing. Ellie knows I sent her a bunch of stuff that's never going to probably see the light of day. I still need to review what you sent me back in return. I haven't had a chance to yet, and that is absolutely the case, yes. If you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. That's incomplete and also a lie. I love what I do. I love writing. I love working with writers. I love all of the things to do with the book industry. Like, I don't love everything the book industry does or everything that comes out of it, but I love what I'm doing. And yes, it is still work. It is hard. It is exhausting. It can be frustrating and disheartening. It's still work, but I'm deeply passionate about it, which makes it so it feels better to do the work. I enjoy the work, but it's still work. It's like gardening. Like, whether I'm out there pulling weeds because I'm angry and hateful, or I'm out there gardening and happy and relaxed, it's still going to be physical labor. Sesame chicken. Sorry. Husband was asking about food. Um, and absolutely that is possible for some of the dissonance to show up that way. And because work doesn't inherently mean it's bad. It doesn't inherently mean you're going to hate it. It doesn't automatically mean that you're selling your soul. It doesn't mean that you are going to lose the things about it that you feel are magical, because you shouldn't. I still really enjoy the process of writing and creating a story, and it's still magic to me. I still enjoy the whole thing. Even though I've been doing this as a job for a decade, it's still magic. That doesn't have to go away, just because I also need to think about, is this marketable? And also need to consider, will this fit my brand? Are the people who look to me to read my stuff going to enjoy this thing? Or should I post this thing on social media or not? Just because it's work and I have to make those calculations doesn't mean I don't really love what I do. Because if I didn't love what I did, I wouldn't be doing it. I can't tell you the amount of unpaid labor I put into books that I publish for other people, or editing I do for other people. There's a lot of unpaid labor that goes into what I do. And if I didn't love what I do as much as I adore it, I wouldn't do those things and I would be bitter and angry and upset. Yeah, so a hard truth of the writing industry is that it's when I talk about authorship, it means that it's going to be work. You're going to have to do all the marketing and all this other stuff that I've been talking about because if you want to sell books, the hard reality is you're going to have to actually sell books. You have to do the marketing stuff. You can't just write something, stick it up on Amazon, and sit back while the money pours in. That just doesn't work. I mean, you can write something and stick it up on Amazon. Getting an agent, it's still going to be work. So an agent is going to want stuff out of you. And if you get an agent, that's great. And if your agent gets you a publishing contract, that's fantastic. But your work hasn't ended. In fact, once you get an agent and once you get a publishing contract, the work only begins. Because once you get those things, you have to go through editing. And at that point, once the editing is done, you have to get into marketing. Because exactly as Nid just wisely said, you can't sell what nobody knows exists. You can't. And that's correct, Anagram. That's a thing that I encounter so much. Like, I wrote this whole book. I did all of this work. I wrote this whole thing. And now you're telling me that's just the beginning of what I need to do? And it's a moment of dismay and can be very painful because it's like, wait, you're saying that I wrote this thing and that's just the start? I felt like I just finished the Boston Marathon and you're telling me that I just ran the first mile of the Boston Marathon. Ouch. Yeah, exactly, Anagram. And it can be a painful, shocking awakening, but it's a really valuable thing to know because when you go into it and you're like, okay, I've written this book and you know what's coming. The next part of getting an agent or getting a publisher is going to be writing queries. There's going to be a lot of rejection. Yeah, exactly, Lead. I did all these experiments. Why do I need to write an article and why do I need to have it reviewed by people? Have a good night, Carly. I hope you sleep well. Um, but the and that's it. I mean, there's a lot of angst because writing a book is hard. Just the act of writing it and editing it yourself and going over it over and over again and trying to make it the best you possibly can is hard. Exactly, Anagram. Like this is not an easy thing we do. Writing is difficult and it's painful and it can be scary and exhausting. But at the same time, it's exhilarating and when it's done, you have a thing that you've made. It's like how I feel about cross stitch to some extent. Like it's painful because I keep stabbing myself with the needle and hunching over my cross stitch and everything is painful, but stitch by stitch I'm creating something that looks really cool. And if I finished making this cross stitch and was told, now you need to learn an entirely different set of skills in order for you to find somebody to enjoy that thing, it's really hard. And it hurts. And it's like, wait, I thought all I needed to do was be a good writer. I didn't know I needed to be a small business owner. And yeah, Raichu, that's the case. So that's when we're talking about authorship and all this other stuff, it's because I know most of you would like to publish your books. And I think actually all of you would like to publish your books, even if, like Lead is looking at, you don't want to publish it for money, you just want to get it out there for the world to read it, it's still publishing it. And I know I keep harping on all of these things, but it is truly like of vital importance. And yeah, but the reality is every job is a job. Every job requires you to learn the ins and outs of that industry to some extent. Every job requires you to learn certain skills in order to make money. You know, you can't do half the job and not end up, with and end up, making money from it. Like I couldn't. I mean, yeah, it would be great if we lived in a Star Trek utopia where we didn't need money and everybody could just exist. That would be fantastic, but unfortunately that's not the reality. As much as I would love it to be, it isn't where we are in society right now. I mean, it's still a utopia. It's not perfect, but then again, no world is ever perfect anyhow. So, that's a reality. Anyway, I'm not gonna start analyzing Picard because I love that show and I need to. Anyway, so yeah, Star Trek isn't a perfect utopia, but they still don't need to worry about money to eat. They just do their thing and exist. So when you decide that, and you come to terms with the fact that, yeah, I have to do all of these things, I have to market and so on, when you make that changeover, that means it's time to start studying it. The best way to get over all of the fear and angst and stress that comes with all of this, that comes with the sudden and abrupt reality that writing it isn't enough, is to start studying. So we buy books like Dan Poynter's Self-Publishing Manual, which is a phenomenal book that I recommend everybody read. I'd be happy to loan you my copy, Raichu, if you wanted to read it. I think Mel may have a copy. Cat, don't sit on your brother. That is absolutely a thing that you should do. Like, start studying. That book, the Self-Publishing Manual, is a manual about how exactly publishing how publishing works. Like, it breaks down all of the different steps. Now, there are some scary numbers in it. Yeah, it is work. Um, but research is how we learn how to do things. And and even if you just go to somebody and say, tell me how to do this, that's still research. And it's going to be work, but you don't have to read that book. There are podcasts you can listen to. There are videos you can watch on YouTube. There are plenty of free resources that will teach you more about the writing industry. And yeah, that's it, Raichu. That's a very valid point. We research our writing already. We research for that usually. So researching a little bit more to understand how to market it isn't, it's the same thing we've been doing. It's just a different venue. And the thing is that business, it sounds like it's so big. It sounds so huge. I didn't really realize until I got to where I am right now how important my degree or almost degree in business is, because to me, it's nothing. Okay, I need to learn how to market this thing. That's fine. Marketing's no big deal. That's not a huge deal. And I just start studying it. For a lot of people, they hear the term marketing and their brain makes the Windows shutdown noise. Dee 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 dee. And they start panicking, but marketing isn't really complicated. It just requires developing a skill set. And it requires understanding some principles, which it's not excessively complicated. Marketing, at its essence, is boiled down to find the person who wants the thing that I have made and encourage them to buy it. At its essence, that's what marketing is. If you're trying to sell a vacuum cleaner, find people who need to vacuum things. Obviously, you're not going to be selling them to people on submarines, so that's one market out. You know, find the people who need your thing, and then tell the people who need your thing how to get your thing. There you go, lead. Perfect. By which I mean, I will kill you. Nuke it from orbit. Just glass it. It's done. And I know you did that to troll me. And yeah, you definitely are bombarded with a lot of inaccurate detail. Part of the thing is a lot of the people, a lot of people's experience with business comes from looking at things like Amazon and listening to people talk about Jeff Bezos or people like Bill Gates. Like, you're looking at and talking about people who are multi-billionaires who market like huge things to people that have huge amounts of money, and you're not really, it's like, how do you go from where you are to Jeff Bezos? Like, how do you get there's a big gulf there, and it feels like, ooh, I don't think I'm ever gonna get there, so why bother trying? When the reality is you're not trying to be Jeff Bezos. I mean, yeah, Jeff Bezos is a jerk. I'm not even gonna argue that, but I'm saying he was just the first person to come to mind of somebody who has been very effective at marketing and has created a huge company. But yeah, you're not trying to be that. Yeah, right, anagram ain't wrong. First of all, I need to be born into a great deal of money, and then I need to spend that money and hire people to spend it for me. But no, that's not really what business and marketing really is. Right, like, nobody really wants to hear how Bob, the owner of the sandwich shop on the corner, puts together his weekly flyer to let people what new sandwiches he's putting together this week. Like, that's not news. So a lot of the stuff you hear about business and marketing is these gigantic corporations that doesn't apply to what we're doing. So it's easy to get overwhelmed and feel like this is too big for me. I'm never going to figure this out. It's for people who are it's too rich for my blood. It's for wealthy people and I can't play this game. When in reality, marketing is it's telling your parents that you've written a book and getting them excited to read the book. It's telling your friends that you've written a book and them going, "Oh, that's awesome. I want to read it." It's me sharing my cover art with the people on my Facebook account, just my friends, and saying, "Look how amazing this is. My cover artist is incredible and I love her face." And I'm so excited. Right, that's marketing. That's just, and all it is me talking about things that I'm really excited about. Like, I'm really excited about these. It's genuine, it's honest. I'm actually really, like, incredibly excited about this stuff because I've been trying to do this and wanting to do this since I was a kid. And yes, you absolutely have those powers on your side. Just like the powers of God in anime. They are on your side. Yes, that has earned the face palm. I'm reading what you have to say, Ellie. It's gonna take me a second. Right, so the advice I would have for you, Ellie, is I'm not sure how long you want to spend banging your head against that wall. I don't. But the advice I would have for you is let them fail. Because they're going to. Dramatically. And once they fail, they will realize that they will either realize that they have chosen poorly, or and they will grow from that decision, or they will quit. Those are the two options. Because you can't. This person sounds like they think they know what they're talking about. It sounds like, they've got it's the Dunning-Kruger effect. They think they know what's up, but the more they think they know, the less they actually know. The other E. There's another E. I must fight them. But
You're fighting for the name E?
yeah, I'm fighting for the name E. Fisticuffs at dawn.
So you're like the only E out there?
I'm the only E. There can be only one.
There can be only E?
There can be only E. But exactly. Uh, but yes, as far as Ellie's commentary up there goes, uh, that individual is going to run into some of those hard truths that I know I've been talking about, is that they're not going to be able to do what they want to do and sell it. They think they do. They think they want to. They're convinced that they know everything and that the problem is everybody except them. And I've dealt with a lot of authors like that. There's a lot of, well, you just don't understand the scope of my literary genius. You're just a shill for the publishing elite and can't understand the art that I'm producing. Those are all actual quotes from rejections that authors have responded to. And yeah, those are one for one actual responses to rejections I've received, albeit mixed up together, but yeah, I've gotten that. And you can't teach those people otherwise. All you can do is say, you're not worth investing $10,000 in because your ego is bigger than your advance would ever be. Thanks. Honestly, there aren't that many publishing elites. That's the thing, is everyone talks about publishing elites. There aren't that many. Unless you're trying to get into the big five who receive thousands of submissions a day and need to decide where to spend their energy, and they are only going to spend a brief moment with anything you send them because they're so big. Anything smaller than them, we're probably going to reject you because you didn't follow the query guidelines, or because we've had enough vampire romances this month, or I just don't think that book fits well with this, or I didn't like it personally. It's not that there are a ton of elites. I've honestly, I've talked to a lot of publishers. I've talked to a lot of editors. I'm in groups of thousands of us. And there aren't that many elitists. Honestly, most of us are like, does the story suck? No. Does the author know how to write a query letter? Oh my gosh. Do they understand they have to market the book? Yes. I am hiring. I'm taking this book. This book is mine now. And you can't have it. Like, if I run across an author who knows how to do those things and the book fits what I'm looking for, there's no elitism. There's just, I want this. Because I'm going to make money. They're going to make money. Everybody's going to go home happy. This is a winning proposition. And there aren't that many of them. How many horny squirrel stories are out there? I don't know. Not too many. Congratulations. Saying that aloud made my husband yell "what" from across the room. Um, yeah, like, I can't tell you how many times I have instructed people to send rejections because they couldn't follow the most basic tenets of the query guidelines. Like, they don't follow even that. And I mean, yeah, like, the thing is like, yeah, sure, there are elitist bastards in the industry, but there are elitist bastards in any industry. For what? I mean, every publishing company is going to have different guidelines, slightly, because they're going to want to know slightly different things. But generally speaking, the things they're going to need to know, the things they want in a query letter, for the most part, is going to be a word count of your novel. What genre is it? A Basically a back cover text, albeit a little bit more like, what is the story about? Who are you? And how are you going to sell the book? That's most of the time what we want in a query. That's the vast majority of it. It's not complicated. But there are a lot of authors who can't even be bothered to do that. I have seen emails that didn't even have body text and was just an attachment. And it's not like somebody accidentally just sent the attachment because they didn't send a follow-up email saying, oops, my bad. So, I mean, I get having an itchy trigger finger with your email, but I mean, come on, guys. Ouch. And those are the people who are most likely to send you angry responses to your rejection, by the way. The people who don't follow query guidelines and expect you to accept the work based on their literary genius without following query guidelines are, by and large, and most dramatically, the ones who are most likely to be pissed off when you say no. Thanks for playing, though. So, just throwing that out there. So, Ellie, in the case of your friend there, it sounds like they are going to be one of those, I don't need to follow query guidelines because I'm a genius, and either they will spend their life railing against the man and never realize that in the scope of the situation, their problems begin and end with them because they're the only part of this equation that is a constant, or they're going to realize that they're beating their head against a wall and the wall is winning, and maybe they should actually take time to learn things. Like, right, like, sure, that is what an editor's for. Pay me. If you want me to correct all your typos and don't want to actually do any of that work, that's fine. That's dandy. Hire me. I'm not going to pick you up to publish you, but I will take your money. And there are people out there who actually tell amazing stories, but whose writing is a disaster because they're dysgraphic or what have you. Like, I have a close friend of mine who's dysgraphic. His writing is full of, like, the wrong conjugation of, like, the wrong there or the wrong your and stuff like that. And it's not because he doesn't know, it's because he's dysgraphic. He's got issues, like legit ones. And he's willing to pay to have those problems fixed because he can't fix them. That's a completely different situation than, well, I'm just going to submit that my literary genius to a publisher and expect that they are going to invest all the time and money that it takes to polish this turd into a diamond. And I don't need to do it because I'm the artiste. And the artiste is perfect. Yeah, I deal with that a lot.
British?
They're all British because British are all self-important.
Oh, watch it.
I sense Founder in the distance. He's just spat out his tea. And he's mad. Right, if they were so gifted, they're... Well, in their mind, of course, their turd is perfect and doesn't need polishing because it's already been... It is already ideal the moment it was defecated. And yes, I don't need to do it because I'm an artiste. Those people don't actually understand that art is work. Like, I'm a musician. I've been playing violin for 30 years. It's work. I draw, and I have close friends who want to be animators, and they spend hours a day drawing and practicing forms because it's work. Art is work. It doesn't just happen. It's not some kind of magical thing that just appears out of nowhere. Like, that's the thing. Like, art doesn't just appear. Good art is the product of a lot of long, hard work and dedication by the person who creates it. It's like the people who look at artists and say, wow, you're so talented. How did you ever accomplish that? And you're like, practice. And they're like, I can't imagine being so talented. You must have been just so good forever. No, I practice a lot. It's unimaginable to me that people like you exist in the world. I practice. Yeah, that's the best you can do for them, Ellie, because at this point, it doesn't sound like they're willing to listen. And that is, also, this does tie back to the whole authorship thing. This art is work. If you want to be a professional at something, it's work, it's hard, and there are going to be a lot of parts that suck, and you don't want to do them, and you aren't going to enjoy it. And yeah, that's a fair statement, Raichu. I mean, I don't see taping a banana to a wall as art. It's not really my thing. A lot of modern art and surrealism I don't get. I prefer a good Monet. But I'm not gonna make a judgment on like what's art to one person is not gonna be art to another, so I guess. But the whole thing is it boils down to success doesn't just happen because you are skilled at producing your art. Success doesn't just magically show up. You have to chase it down and beat it with a stick, like a piñata, until it gives you money. That is really how this works. Like, you have to go chasing after it, like, no, come back.
That sounds like a cat poster.
It does sound like a cat poster. Maybe I should make it into a cat poster. Uh, there you go. Perfect, Raichu. And that is art.
Success must be chased down and beaten with a stick until it gives you money.
Yep, like a piñata. And and that's the thing. Like it's not going to be making the decision that you want to do this professionally starts you down a track of understanding what it means to be a professional. It means talking to other professionals in your field. That's a fair statement, Mel. That's this. Yes, but so being a professional, it's doing things like we're doing right now. Like all of you have been attending these lectures, and have been listening to me talk about this kind of stuff, like week after week for almost 2 years now. That counts as moving towards being a professional because you are refining your art and giving me the opportunity to babble to somebody that isn't the wall or my husband or my cats. Because my cats really don't care about my writing. I know. Right, like what I'm doing right now. That's part of being a professional. I am doing this. True story. Like, I'm doing this because part of this is marketing to some extent. Because I know, and it has happened, people in here have said, hey, I know this editor who could help you, and sent people to me because they've listened to me talk and had a chance to get to know me. So I have made money doing this because I've had people send other individuals my way, or some of the people here have hired me to work for them and edit for them, or we've done skill trade, things like that. That is a thing. And that counts as me taking those steps towards being a professional. And counts towards my marketing and all of that stuff. Like, it's actually there. It really is. And you don't have to, it doesn't have to be, all business suits and spending money. Like, on Monday when I do that presentation to the college class over Zoom, I'm probably going to dress up, but most of the time for this, like, I'm lecturing to you guys in my pajamas because why do I need to get dressed? I'm on voice. You guys don't need to know that I'm wearing cat pajamas. Well, now you know I'm wearing cat pajamas, but still. Like, I'm not dressing up or putting hours and hours of work into most of these lectures. Like, I'll figure out what we're going to talk about this week, think about it, maybe sometimes write myself a quick outline, and then let things happen, because a lot of the time we go take tangents on this. And so it's stuff like this that the conversation we're having right now, it's showing the fact that you keep coming back and keep coming to these talks and spending your time. Some of you are staying up really late or getting up holy crap early just to come here and learn about writing, to connect with your other, your fellow writers, to study the business end of things. Like, that dedication, you're taking those steps, you're making those choices. You're developing what you're trying to do. So you are on your way. You are going in that direction. And the rest of it, it's just going to be doing some reading, studying a little bit about how to use social media. Like, I've seen some of you are already using your social media differently. Like, particularly Lead and Anagram, I've been seeing you guys back and forth on Twitter all the time, sharing neat photos, using some hashtags, stuff like that. Like, I'm seeing you guys make those changes. And I'm seeing you make, you're dedicating to doing this. And it doesn't mean, the authorship doesn't always mean you're doing everything right. It doesn't always mean 100% what you're doing, but it means that you are making the effort. I can't tell you the number of times I've done that anagram. Like, wait, I scheduled a tweet? Who is this ghost that has possessed my account? Right, you're not giving up. Congratulations, Anagram, that's fantastic. Like, those are all really important things. And you're making those, you're taking those steps. You're making that progress, and you're doing it with every one of these choices you make to better understand the industry and better understand what you want to do and what you're going to need to put into it in order to get what you want out of it. Like all of those choices, that's authorship. You don't have to have the book out. The book doesn't have to be even owned by a publisher yet. But you are taking the steps to be an author, not just be a writer. And I don't say just a writer as a pejorative. Like, it's not a just a writer. It's just a different category of being, because I'm doing this for money. Not just because I want money, not just because I like money, but I'm doing this for profit rather than just for fun. I mean, I still have fun, but I want to make this my job. And that, as I've been talking about, that requires a different mindset. And creating that mindset is challenging to some extent. Like you have to get it in your head that this is what I need to do. And it's making space to plan those tweets. It's making space to go to writing groups. It's making space to connect with other authors and professionals. It's, even soliciting critique and like having people tear things apart. Like, maybe you do want to make people cry. You can make people cry. You sadist. Make people cry with your sad, horny squirrel stories. That is a sentence I never thought I'd say. But here we are. Yeah, I've made myself cry writing certain scenes or reading scenes that I've written because I get really emotional about them. Like, I've had that experience more than once. And all of these steps and all of these things you're doing are what's going to define you as being successful. Because there are so many people out there who think that authorship is literally just writing something, formatting it, throwing it on Amazon, and flooding Twitter with buy my book posts and hashtags. And when you tell them that that's not authorship, really, they tend to get really upset. As if you've challenged some vital part of their existence. Yeah, level up, nice. Yeah, and right, they explode. They get so mad because deep down, I think they understand. Well, not just that, Raichu. Deep down, I think they understand that what they're doing isn't working. But they think if they do it hard enough and long enough, it's gonna somehow magically work. And it's honestly kind of sad, because if they were to put that energy into something more effective, they'd have sales. And they wouldn't be pissed off and miserable. So that's absolutely a thing. And they're frustrated because what they're doing isn't working. And who are you to tell them how to do it better? But what they're doing isn't working and they're already mad, so lizard brain is taken over, and of course, they know what's best. Which is more or less how it goes. Yeah, absolutely, Lee. That's great. So we're wrapping up here. Does anybody have anything they want to talk about next week? I know, Heather, I'm gonna start bugging you about doing a romance thing, because I've got people who really, really want to hear you talk about doing romance. And yes. So I am gonna start poking you about that. Oh, come on. Heather, come back. You said you wanted to. You volunteered for it the first time. If you need help preparing for it, or if you want to do a test run on somebody to help you feel less intimidated, feel free to talk to me. But I'm sure you have noticed that around here sometimes things get, weird and sideways and we don't judge. Like, I've given half awake lectures before and nobody's told me I'm an idiot and not to come back. So, but yes, Heather, we can absolutely do that. I will make time to give you a chance to do a test lecture with just me. And we can talk about it so that you don't need to feel as intimidated because it isn't super bad. We're really casual around here. If it helps, you could also make a PowerPoint if that would be something you wanted to do. PowerPoints are sometimes a big help. Um, Raichu, I'm fine with talking about something else. What else would you like to talk about? I'm happy to take other topics. I've been talking about business and marketing a lot lately because that's the headspace I have been in with my book coming out, and I've been like neck deep in marketing, but I am totally open to talking about other things. Hmm. That's an interesting topic, Ellie. That would be worth doing some research on. I'd have to understand a little bit more about what the fan fiction mindset is. So honestly, you might be really good to do a talk on that because you're really good at putting that kind of stuff together. I've seen a lot of the posts you make. I think you would give a phenomenal lecture. If you want to. If you're not comfortable with it, that's fine. Absolutely, Lead. Lead did a great job with his lecture on biology. He really did. I'm actually very sad that I can't find the recording of it. I've been looking. It was a really interesting lecture. And if you would ever like to give it again so that a new group of people can hear what you had to say, that would be fantastic. Like, I really do want to encourage you folks to also some of you to come talk cuz it's good practice because you're not going to find a more forgiving group than this one. And it's practice for when you actually have to talk about your book to people, or if you get invited to do a podcast or a vlog or something like that. It's so practicing here might be helpful. Yeah. Exactly, Heather. Perfect. All right, so I'm gonna get going because I need to actually drive to my friend's house to do D&D this week because he invited us to go over there and we have to go pick up food. But I am the remember we have the future discussion suggestions channel. So if there's something you guys want to talk about, please put it there. I have trouble coming up with a topic every single week except what is in the forefront of my brain, which is why it's been on marketing. Um, I could probably talk endlessly about how playing narrative heavy video games counts as studying story structure, but that's a thing. But yeah, put things up in the new discussion suggestion or I actually kind of would like to give out homework and have everybody think about a topic they could do a lecture on. And even if we have like people do two per week, like each half an hour rather than an hour, because an hour can feel like a lot of time. That would be cool because I would kind of like everybody to have the opportunity to talk if you have the capacity to, like, if you have a mic or whatever, that's fine. But I'd like to give everybody the chance to because I feel like it's important experience. And it's safe. Like, nobody's gonna make fun of you any more than we ever make fun of each other. Like, but it's not gonna be ever mean spirited, and nobody's gonna discourage you. Circuits, eh? The only thing I know about circuits is my grandfather got me a how to make a circuit kit when I was like 8, and it was cardboard. So All right, I will let you go. Have a great evening. I will, in fact, murder the players, maybe. I almost murdered them last week. The two dragons, the ones with the goblins in the trench coat. Almost got them. So I will talk to you later. Have a good night, and please do think about what kind of topic you could do a half-hour lecture on in the future. Have a good night, everybody.